Went to a barber, went a mom to a tailor, went a king to a god, went a god to another.
For me, I think you learn more from your surroundings musically than you would in school a lot of times. Sometimes it's about the students at the school, and it's about being, especially if you're a jazz musician, when you walk out the four walls of the school and there's no jazz, then it's like, okay, you know, if you were going to school for swimming, but there was no pool to practice, you know, you got the best swimming coach in the world. If y'all ain't got no pool, so where's the color gonna help you? You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I am with Boston. It's like, yeah, I want you. And a lot of times with these colleges, it's all the same teachers. They all teach at the same colleges. They literally go from new school, get on the train, go to Berkeley, and then, you know, the same thing in Manhattan School of Music. They're all the same, you know what I mean? So you're not gonna get any better education from one to the other as far as just a hands-on teacher teaching you jazz, per se. If you wanna go to school for engineering or something from that angle, you know, Berkeley's good because they have a huge engineering department and, you know, stuff like that. And anything with recording and things of that nature, you know, learning how to run Pro Tools and all that kind of stuff. And Berkeley's great for that. But when it just comes down to playing music, I would totally choose New York because everybody that goes to Berkeley for music has to come to New York after the fact. You end up going there anyway. So you might as well, my thought was I might as well be there and get a head start on all them Berkeley cats. You know what I mean? Because by the time they got to New York, I was established. I had my gig set. You know, people knew me. It was good because while you're getting an education, you're at the same time you're going out to the jam sessions and mad, you know, musicians are asking you to go on the road with them, and you know what I mean. And New York is just it's a melting pot of the best musicians in the world. They're there. They're all in New York. So you go see somebody else play, but you're sitting next to one of your favorite artists. You know what I mean? Y'all start talking. He's like, oh, you're a piano player? Oh, okay. Why don't you come by my house and do a jam session? Like, wow, that just happened. You know what I mean? And then from there, that could literally start a career for you. You know what I mean? But it's about being in a place where you can have those connections. You know, so, you know, like I said, as far as playing goes, without a doubt, New York. And again, it's really about the outer, you know, once you step outside of the school, how's that going to help you? Because you're going to spend more time outside of the school than inside of the school. You know what I mean? So the environment helps a lot, you know, as well.
Well, it's a lot like being in the studio here. You know, you have your microphones and then you have your big mixing board in the back. But I guess there's so many layers to it, really. First and foremost, I'm a musician first, so my mindset is it's about the music, no matter what we're at. And being a musician, being a bass player and a vocalist that I am, I've played all kinds of different styles of music, so I know I've just studied it and spent a lot of time with it, so it's, I mean, really, it's just be appropriate for the application. That's my approach. And same thing with whenever I bring whatever I do with these guys, it's all about what they're doing. It's all about the music rather than me applying exactly what I think it should be or whatever else, how it's supposed to sound. I guess, you know, a bass guitar is a bass guitar. You know, a Fender Rhodes is a Fender Rhodes. They sound the way they're supposed to sound, so just make sure I don't mess that up. Make it sound the way it's supposed to sound. Keep it easy. But let me start at the beginning. Basically what I do is I get to the venue and I build all the equipment on the stage, put everything up on the stage right in all the spots it needs to be, and then we set up all the microphones in front of, you know, I'll mic each individual drum. The overhead's kind of like this for the drums, and then you know, Casey has a very interesting world going on. I don't know if you saw the show yesterday, but you know, not only is he a sax player, but he's also created his own instrument. That it's, I basically call it a wind instrument, kind of like a horn with a mouth. he's basically put a mouth on the end of a saxophone. So it's like a sax, but yet it talks to you. It's pretty amazing. It's very unique, very special. So to have to wrap myself around that and get into that world and set up his whole thing. And then beautiful thing about the piano, the 88 keys, they're pretty straightforward, you know. I love it.
That's it.
Yeah, but so basically after that, what I do is we get all the microphones up, and then I go out to the mixing board and I make sure that everything sounds the right way. Each person in the band has their own monitor that they listen to, that they have their own mix that they can listen to themselves with, so I make sure that that sounds straight. And then go out to the house and make sure it sounds good for the people in the audience. I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves in the world is to go to a show and it sounds bad. You know, and it happens way too many times where you know, and it's way too acceptable, I feel like, in a lot of circles with people that don't know. If they don't know any better, they don't know. But once you go to the right show and you see the right people, you go see Prince, like go see, like you said, Roberta, like go see people that are established, that have their own people, and it sounds amazing. And the last thing you actually think about is, oh wow, the sound man's doing a great job, you know? I mean, the only time you ever think about it is like, think about that hip hop show you went to and all you heard was woo, 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 all night long, you know? And it's like, that's just, to me, it's not acceptable. So there's a lot of ways to simplify it, and for me, it's all about the music first. So pay attention to the application and do what you need to do to fit within it, being a musician or not a musician, or being a manager or whatever else in between. It's just to be appropriate for the application. I'll leave it at that.
I want to know what that incredible thing was that you did last night for your vocals and your, your vocoders, all that stuff. It's just astonishing. What is that?
Basically what a vocoder is, it's a vocal synth. So basically how the vocoder works is you get any sort of synth sound or what they call a carrier. And when you press the keyboard, it's a gate. So you press the key, the gate opens. You take the finger off, the gate closes. So when the gate opens, you just sing into it. And basically I'm singing what I'm playing. Now, a lot of people get auto-tune and a vocoder confused. Auto-tune is basically a software program that you turn on and you just sing whatever, and then in post-production you adjust it and do all those sort of things with it. Whereas a vocoder, it's actually live. You're actually playing everything, but you're getting a sort of synthesized robotic sound out of it. So if I play in the vocoder and I sing through it, I can play the notes and I could just sing hey, 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 and change the notes, and I could play a scale and it'll change it. But in order to get the right inflection and phrasing and to make it sound human-like, I would need to sing the pitches along with the notes, which is...
And that's what you're doing?
That's exactly what I'm doing. So it's an instrument in itself. It takes practice, and you know,
Well, you got
have
the knob of weirdness over there.
Oh yeah, well I do real-time effects, all types of reverbs and delays and that sort of thing. And I think I'm the first person, it's safe to say I'm probably the first person in history to actually do this with a guitar and this sort of thing. So it's a very unique setup that I've been working with ever since I was 14 years old. I've always been fascinated by Roger Troutman and Peter Frampton, and then this one Herbie Hancock record called Sunlight blew my mind. I heard it when I was 16, 17 years old, and it just like blew my mind pretty much, and I wanted to take that and try to take it to another level. So that's basically what it is.
Where do you find the overlap between like the jazz scene and the hip hop scene? And if like you're interested in both things and you're just trying to find ways to make them work beyond just the similarities in the music itself, can you talk a bit about that, I guess?
Beyond the music itself?
Well, I mean, like obviously there's like learning about hip hop and jazz,
Right.
but like in terms of like meeting people and just getting involved in the scenes themselves, where do you find the overlap somewhere like New York or Berkeley?
Oh, definitely New York. That's the home, that's the birth of hip hop. You know what I mean? That's where you're gonna find most of your, hip hop clubs, most of your when I moved to New York, they used to have a thing called, there was a jam session every week that Questlove from the Roots would lead. It was at this place called Wetlands. And we would go there, and it was a hip hop jam session. And that's where I would go there, I would see, you know, D'Angelo, Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, Macy Gray, all these people. This is supposed to be before they were even really famous like that, you know what I mean? But they would all go to these hip hop jam sessions, you know, and it was like a community of people that Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Common, all those people. And that's how I met a lot of people. Just me and my boy Bilal would go to these jam sessions every week and hang out. But New York has those things, you know what I mean? And like I said, most of your hip hop artists live in New York too, you know what I mean? So for me, I was actually in that scene. A lot of jazz cats wasn't going to that because the hip hop jam session, you know. So a lot of jazz people think, oh, I'm going to go to the jazz jam session. I mean, everything is jazz, everything's jazz, everything's jazz. But there's a world outside of that if you just go, you can dibble and dabble in that world. In the hip hop world, you just play keys. You don't have to be a hip hop piano player in the hip hop world. You just play keys. You know, you play keys? All right, cool. I got you can get on some albums, all that. You know what I mean? They don't care what kind of piano player you are. Jazz, you have to be a jazz piano player. You know what I'm saying? You have to be a jazz piano player. So it's really easy if you're a musician to go somewhere, and especially when you play piano. You know, it gets a little more intricate when it becomes like a drummer and a bass player when you're playing hip hop stuff, because it reveals itself very fast. You know what I mean? But a lot of times with a piano player, you can play something on top of something, and as long as the bass and the drums got the head nod, then everything's cool. You know what I mean? So really, when it comes to just overlapping, it's about just being in those situations. Put yourself where hip hop cats are, or where the hip hop scene is. You know what I'm saying? Go to those hip hop jam sessions. Go to where they do live soul bands and all that kind of stuff. So you got to put yourself in that situation. A lot of people want so much, but they don't do anything. They stay home, and then they go to the jazz club. But they're like, but I want to play hip hop. If you want a burger, where do you go? The place where they serve burgers. It's pretty simple. So, you know, sorry for the random analogies, but they just came to my head. But you know, that's what you got to do. So you just go there. You go, where's it at? Oh, I'm gonna go. Not even if you don't have to play when you go. You can really just go for a little while, hang out every week. You know what I mean? And then eventually you're gonna meet people, you're gonna talk. Eventually you're gonna sit in. Eventually you're gonna start playing. They might start calling you to be the house band, you know, for a few weeks, or whatever it is, you know, and that's how you get in that world. And like I said, it's so easy that you'll end up on recordings and all kinds of stuff, because it's like, oh, I know somebody play keys. You know, especially if you're in college, they don't think they gotta pay you a lot of money. Cool. They're gonna be like, oh, I know a young guy, you know, boom, let's get him, blah, blah, blah. And then you're in that scene, you know what I mean? So with Berkeley, the scene is the students. You know what I mean? When you get out of the school, when you go to all the little clubs they have, like Wally's, and they have like 2 other clubs, it's the students at the club. So you're leaving school just to be back in school again. You know what I mean? But in New York, you're leaving school, but you're going to see like the Masters play and great cats from other cities, because everybody moves to New York. So you're going to see all kinds of musicians playing that don't go to your school. You know what I mean? And so that's the upside of it. Now, obviously, if Berkeley gives you a full scholarship and this school gives you no money, then yeah, go to Berkeley. You know what I'm saying? But that makes more sense. But if you have your choice and they both give you the same amount of money like they did with me, choose New York. I would choose New York. Like I said, if you're going for the music and to play. You know what I mean? Definitely for that.
Did most of you have a private tutor, like for your instrument? Did you have like a private tutor to show you how to play it and stuff when you were learning how to play?
My CD player, my tape player. Not really. Did you?
I mean, I kind of grew up self-taught, but you know, when I got into college, it was one of those things where they wanted to just start me from the beginning. So I got in the orchestra. I didn't even play in like the jazz groups or anything like that. And I got a teacher really that I keep in touch with to this day. You know what I mean? So for me, yeah, I had a private instructor that really, he encouraged me, other than all the like simple stuff, he encouraged me to keep listening and never let go of like listening to records and all that stuff. But for me, I really had to go hard for a couple of years just learning the fundamentals of the instrument. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I had one teacher that his contribution to my studies was more letting me check out music. Because from a playing aspect, it was funny. I think I was like 14. I wouldn't say I was better than him, but when I played, it was more defined than his playing was. And he recognized that, so he was like, let's stop playing drums and let's listen to music and check out some stuff. So when he did that, that opened up my world. But growing up, I was just aggressively into music and drums, and then, but then also I was in all phases of school, from elementary, middle school, high school. I was always in music programs. So those teachers were like my teachers, and it wasn't specifically drums, but they taught me. I played saxophone, violin, and they taught me music. So I was always learning music at school, which I think is very important. And then I went to college and it just expanded. So everything I learned from those years carried on to college, because it's all music. You know, learn how to read music, learn about different instruments, you know, just all that kind of stuff.
And I think for me, it was also important. When I got in school, I really went hard at just learning the instrument, all this kind of stuff that I knew nothing about. I spent a lot of time on that, and I thought it was important that during those formative years, that professor was even saying, you know what, man, this weekend, just get in the car, come with me to New York. And because he was playing for this play in New York at the time, and he was like, you can ride up with me, but just come to the city. You don't have to come see my show. He was like, I'll just drop you off, and then you can go check out whatever. And I did that. So that's another thing, like Bob was talking about. Even with, I had like great teachers, they would, hearing from him, you know what, come to New York, there's a lot going on. You may not know what to check out, but just go. You'll figure out some stuff, and that's what I did. So even in college, when most formative years, I was still going to check out stuff, going to the Village Vanguard so much that the guy at the front, before he even knew who I was, he was just like, you know, from now on, just come sit in the back for free whenever you come. Just come. It's good seeing you. You don't ever bother anybody. You know what I mean? And oddly enough, one of my first gigs in New York was at the Vanguard. So, but again, it comes down to just being around and having somebody say what Rob's saying right now about, you know, just be there, be around where all that stuff is happening. Because a lot of people were trying to check out hip hop and all that stuff at the time, and I kind of came from that. I was just blown away by jazz and that kind of thing, man. And no other place where you could hear that level of music on any given night, even at a random jam session. You know what I mean? Because even if it wasn't necessarily my taste, I was hearing people do stuff that I knew I just couldn't do. You know what I mean? Just ability, you know, just the level and the standard. So again, I mean, whoever your teacher is, just know it's always good to submerge yourself. Trust your ears. Always listen to music, but try to put yourself in situations where you're going to be uncomfortable wherever you go in life. You know, just being uncomfortable is a discipline. You have to focus on that sometimes. Like, no matter how cool things are, when compliments start coming your way and people are saying you're great, and they're saying, oh, you're the promising kid right now, and all the programs even here in Atlanta, enjoy that right now, but just know, even at a young age, you're never too young to say, you know, I want to be uncomfortable. Let me put myself in an uncomfortable situation. You know what I mean? Let me be the one afterwards asking all the questions. Let me bug these guys that, you know, be that person, because you never know.
I came through school where it was right after Reagan was out of office. So, you know, a lot of public programs and music programs in schools were eliminated. You know, and I got in right in time before all of that, you know, really went bad. But, you know, a lot of, you know, I didn't know how, my sight reading was really bad, and all I really had was the music, was the records and stuff. And I was a pretty emotional kid, and, you know, I daydreamed a lot, and I always put music with shapes and sounds, because I didn't know anything about actual notes on the paper yet. So everything in my life I associated to emotions, feelings, and shapes and colors, you know. And one of the things that I used to teach, huh? Whatever. Very killer. One of the things I would teach some of the students that I had is when I was a kid, I used to come home from school and my mother would watch. She used to love soap operas, and she used to love General Hospital. And you know, they're very melodramatic shows, and you know, woman's always crying because she loves this guy or someone dies. It's very dramatic. And I would always come home and I would turn the volume down when she was out of the room. Turn the volume down and just play to what I saw on the TV. And it's like, so when you're on stage, you're not thinking about notes, you're thinking about emotions and scenes. So it's like, you know, you're playing a solo, I'm thinking about this guy professing his love for this woman, and you're playing that instead of playing a triplet with an 8-note run. You know, you disconnect yourself from it. And then later on, I got more into actually reading and theory and putting the things together. So it was kind of reversed for me in that way.
You ready for the question?
So first of all, thanks for doing this. Really, really great. This is the question I had put to me as an older musician. I'm always interested in hearing other musicians. When we're young, we're always sponges for everyone else's style and learning other people. We often learn by copying other people's licks and playing cover material and all that. But at a certain point, the people who get to do what you get to do found their voice, their own unique voice. Can you talk about how you got from that place of being an imitator to being an innovator with your own voice and kind of what's involved in that?
For me, I used to copy Oscar Peterson hardcore, learn some of his solos. I used to be a Chick Corea hardcore Chick Corea fan and a hardcore McCoy Tyner fan. So I was always trying to mimic those guys and play like them. I think what helped me out with trying to get my own sound, because other than that, people always say I'm working on having my own style. What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like honestly, or when you have your own sound, it's like you can't. It's something. For me, when it comes to my own sound, I think that started with composition, because that's how you separate yourself from everybody in the world off top, because you just wrote a song that no one's ever written. You know what I mean? Other than that, you're playing standards or playing songs that have already been around for 1 million years. That song's been played 500 million times, and you playing it doesn't matter in the world. You know what I mean? In a certain way. Like, hey, I'm playing the blues. Who else is, how many other people in the world are playing the blues right now? How many other people in the world know this lick over the blues? You know, like, but if you sit down and write a song, no one's written that song before. Even though you're using the same tools, using the same 12 notes, and you're using the same chord change that have already been there before. But the beauty of composition is it's yours off top. I can play something right now and no one's ever played before, and that didn't work because it's not up. But it would work if this was up. So, there you go. Probably with having your friends in the band. Too many jokes. But yeah, as a musician, I started writing songs in high school. In 11th grade, my first song was Carla. It was for a girl. Yeah, and yeah, so that kind of helped me define who I am and what my style is and my sound. You know what I mean? By writing compositions. And you keep writing, and through your compositions, I think that helps you actually find a style. You'll realize you'll just start playing. I didn't choose to play like I play now. I just do. And some people define it, hey, that's Glasper style or something like that. Once I realized people are saying that, it's like, wow, maybe I do have a style. A lot of times you don't realize it until other people tell you. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of it comes from composition, because that's yours. That's so personal, that's yours, and nobody else has that. You know what I mean? So I think it comes from there, and then you'll eventually find your playing style through your composition, through your own music, you know?
Anybody else?
Yes, did you all start playing jazz, hip hop, or did you start something else?
Yeah, everybody kind of skipped over who y'all played with and stuff. Like, let them into the world of who you played with and all that. You know.
Well, I started playing, well, I was part of this program called Jazz Ahead. It's by a great jazz legend, Betty Carter. She headed this program. And that was my biggest introduction into jazz, you know. She sort of took me under her wing, and she was like a mentor. And from there, I started working with Buster Williams, and I was working with Lenny White, and I was working with Vernon Reid from Living Color, and I was doing all sorts of things, all different types, working with different pop acts that were signed to a label that I was with. And so I was always around different styles of music. So my ears are always open, and always, I never considered myself a jazz musician. I always was just a musician. I mean, I played mostly jazz or anything that was a derivative of jazz, a close derivative, but I never really considered myself a jazz musician, just jazz music. So I don't know, I was just always around everything. And just being a product of, growing up in New York, you were just around everything. Everything was there, so.
Well, the music I started off playing was, I started playing in church, which was like the best experience. Because church is literally, for me, was like jazz. It was hip hop. It was jazz in a way where it was unpredictable from service to service. Like, we'll play one song. We'll play one song at this tempo. So the next Sunday, I'm thinking that tempo, and I play that beat, but they like, speed it up, speed it up. I was like, oh man, I'm playing faster. But we always had special guests, like people come in, they'll say, play this song. I'm like, I don't know this song, but you gotta play it. So that's, jazz is like that, but then it's, church is like, drums is pretty much the heartbeat of the service. Like, it has to be driving, which is like hip hop, kind of in a sense. I mean, a lot of different genres, especially hip hop. But, church has so many different experiences that it was great for me to be young and have that kind of opportunity to learn music in that way. So, that's how I got started. But then I got exposed to jazz, and I studied that hardcore. When I went to New York, I really went to be a jazz musician. So in my high school years, that's when I really started checking out just a lot of jazz, and then going to concerts and that whole thing. And then I moved to New York, and oddly enough, I'm start playing with cats. No real big jazz gigs starting off, but I was doing little jazz spots, from restaurants, from all kind of stuff. But then every now and then I'll play with a known jazz musician in New York in a different situation. So that was cool. But then my first major gig was a hip hop gig, which I hadn't explored yet, which is funny. But I was able to play the music based on my church experiences. It's crazy, like, cause the feeling, they was like, I didn't know the tunes. I did an audition, and they was like, yeah, we're gonna play this like a Jay-Z popular song. I didn't even know it, but so I started playing whatever I felt, and they was like, nah, the beat is this, and they looking at me like, this is on the radio. You don't know this? I'm like, man, I'm just kind of disconnected, because I was really studying jazz. I didn't even listen to radio like that. I was just studying jazz. But when I played the beat, they was like, man, it just feels right. And they wanted me to do the gig. My first gig was Common. So I went from playing jazz, growing up in church, studying jazz, but then I ended up on a hip hop gig. But then even in the midst of that, people recognized me from that situation, but then they was like, from me playing in these small situations, going to the new school, they was like, he can play jazz. So I ended up playing with Kenny Garrett, and I worked with Stephon Harris and a lot of different other jazz guys, in the music. And then from there, jazz is so multifaceted as far as like all the influence. I got the chance to work with vocalists, jazz vocalist Liz Wright, a lot of different singers. And then that carried on. I was working with this artist, Amila Rue, who's like a R&B jazz kind of vocalist. So you start getting to all these kind of different kinds of music. So, and then it's just progressed to this situation, which is like all of that put into one. You know, you have jazz, you have gospel, you have hip hop, you have R&B, you have rock, which I did a lot of stuff. I played some dates with Heavy, which is like a rock, pop / jazz kind of group fusion. So it's just, but church really opened I think it really opened my creativity and my openness to music, being that it was just no boundaries. Like, they never told you what to play. You just played. As far as like me being able to play, it was just a freedom that I never really experienced that freedom. Only time I really experienced the whole of that kind of freedom is kind of like jazz. Now it's different because music is kind of interchanging, so it's different, but church is where I pretty much got my musical influence and start, playing.
Yeah, I started playing. I wanted to play the instrument because of this bass player from my mom's church in Philly, Joel Ruffin, who I found out later he inspired a whole lot of later influences, Christian McBride and a lot of bass players from Philly. But I started playing in school. Like, that's how I learned the instrument. They gave me I wanted to play the bass because that's what he played, but it was too big for my body, so I started on guitar, and then when I grew up a little bit, they gave me a bass and said, all right, stick with that. And one of my mother's friends came to the concert and said, hey, you know what, we need to get him playing in church. So and that's how I started playing. They brought me to one of our neighbors' choir rehearsals, and I just sat there, and I remember from the beginning, like, I remember that feeling of how gospel music kind of hit me even when I first started hearing it from Joel in Philly, and I fell in love with it. I started playing gospel music like really heavy at a young age, and that's how I got my first like actual gig. I was 13 and I started playing with this artist, James Moore. That was like my first tour, rest in peace. And from there, like, I thought that's what I was gonna do, but again, I came up in a school system where music was really heavy in the schools. And I got into jazz band just because that's what everybody wanted to do, so that's what I did. And then I ended up going to school for it because he said, hey, go to school I went to. They have a pretty cool jazz program, so that's what I did. And even when I got in school for jazz, like I said, I got in other programs, but I was never far removed from other styles of music that I was doing at the time. While I was in college, I was still doing like records like Jill Scott and music they were recording at the time. And Floetry, and like, I had the opportunity to be a part of those records at the time, so my senior year, my first major tour, as an adult was Jill Scott, when her first album came out, who was Jill Scott, and I hit a crossroads. It was like, okay, are you gonna go back to school, or are you gonna, keep touring? And I decided to go back to school, and from my senior year of college on, that's when like the possibility of jazz actually happened for me, because I met Christian McBride, and he was doing so much stuff at the time. He's an amazing bass player, and he put me in these programs without audition. He was like, you should do this, so as soon as I got out of school, I did this, and then I met some people, and then got a couple little gigs and started playing around New York. But there was never a time where I was all the way ever removed from what I was doing, you know what I mean? It was never, even when I tried to just submerge myself in jazz music, just because I had to have some income, I never stopped playing other styles like that. So I don't think at any point in my life it was ever, is it jazz or hip hop or R&B? That was never a question for me until actually later when I started being known for that and people asked how did I balance. It was never for me like a balance thing. It just seemed like that's just what we do, So when Common Tour came later and all that stuff, it never felt like this is a stretch in another direction. It was just what I did, And fortunately, I had an opportunity to be in bands and work with band leaders that never judged me or, told me to just do this. They said, "Oh, this is what you do it." So I never had that pressure. So I'm kind of a hybrid of a whole bunch of stuff, And this band, like Mark said, is just like the perfect platform for that because I'm in a band with 3 other individuals who think that same way. We're all products of all this different type of stuff, and really
we never think about the genres and being asked, how are you bouncing on, until people ask us. Because really, there was never a ceiling or a wall to say, okay, you have to just do this, or you have to just do this,
I think what's important, I grew up in New York in the 70s, and I can remember when school was out, I had friends, and my younger brother would run home to go watch the Green Hornet and the Batman, and I would run home to listen to Frankie Crocker because he was playing some incredible stuff, Led Zeppelin, Charlie Parker, you just got a spectrum of music, and music was colorless back then. There was no genres, it was just music. And that's one of the main reasons why I started the foundation. I just felt like music had gotten out of hand. It's unbalanced. They just feed you one dose of a certain music, and that's it. And I just feel like, I think that's what's incredible about you cats, because you just mash all this together. Just talk about some of your influences and, and the things that you guys could be doing to kind of broaden and open your mind to different type of music and how it can creatively, come out in the future for you.
Hey, can I ask you one more question? But I know y'all all talked about growing up in the church, playing in the church. And I'm not sure if you did.
No, I didn't.
You didn't, okay. So this isn't for you, I guess, but I know piano teachers, like jazz piano teachers, who say they get guys from gospel players who come to them and can play anything. And they say, all I want you to do is tell me what I'm doing. Like, tell me, like, when I do this, what is that? Oh, that's it, E13, sharp 11, whatever. That's the kind of thing. I mean, it seems like the church is, and there's so much, you watch these guys, I have to admit, I don't go to a black church every Sunday, and I don't hear that kind of stuff. But when you watch these guys on YouTube who are like, they obviously don't know the theory and anything else, but man, they play like, your style is like where that style goes, it seems to me. And it's just, and all of you guys are like that. Is that, how important is that in what y'all get when you grow up?
It's very important because, when you think about it, church is the only way you can be 6 and play in front of a whole lot of people.
6.
Yeah, and get a check. That's it. Yeah. You can be 6 years old and work. That's the only time, especially, when you're African American too, like that's, you can think about it like, if you're young and you play an instrument, there's no other way to make money. You're not allowed to go into clubs and play because you're too young. So that's a place where, church is a place where you're continuously performing and with other people. You know what I mean? And from a lot of people from a very young age. So it's like you're just getting so much performance practice that, and the way church is built, the way most black churches are run, it's like they give you a tape or a CD of this, and now it's probably sending you email MP3s, but when I was coming up, it was tapes. And they'll be like, yeah, go home and learn these 5 songs for tomorrow, and know them, because we don't even know what key we're going to do it in yet. Sister Smith is singing it, and she ain't coming to rehearsal yet, so we got to figure it out. But at that point, yeah, you got to learn those songs by ear, and then if you're the church organ, church pianist, especially if you went to a small church, you really know all your keys, because that random deacon is going to start the song off. You can get on one knee, put his hand right here, and start singing God Be Over, Great Jehovah, and you gotta find the key, and you just go. That's what small churches are very just spontaneous, they just bust out singing, and you just gotta go. It's not, it's not structured now, like a lot of big churches are very structured, and they sing songs from the hymn book, and all that stuff. We didn't even own hymn books at my church. So I didn't learn how to read until later on, until really like high school, when I started reading music. But yeah, so it takes a lot of natural talent. It trains your natural talent, when you're in church and you're small, because you have to learn stuff by ear, and you have to be good at changing keys and just being spontaneous. So it just totally keeps you on your toes all the time. So I say the best musicians are from church. So many cats, just naturally talented. It's cats that will blow me. I wasn't even near their talent at that age. 8 years old, I wasn't even touching the piano. I wasn't thinking about it. I watch YouTube now, I see 8-year-olds that sound better than about 40-year-olds I know. It's with ease, it's amazing. It's like basketball now, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many cats that the athletic ability now is so much broader, and it's the norm now, you know what I mean, than it was, 30 years ago. You know what I mean? Everybody's bigger, taller, stronger, and everybody can start off playing like Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? That's the start. So now it's the same thing in music. It's like everybody's just good. They're so good, at a young age. So then you just have to, like we were saying, I have a lot of church cats come to me and ask me, what am I doing? Can you show me what this is? Boom, 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 boom. And so at that point, it's just musicality. It's just learning how to play what you already know in certain situations. But in a lot of situations, it means just taking away stuff because you know how to play a 10-note chord. But this vibe only calls for 3 notes. So it's just a point of now knowing what the music actually calls for that moment, and not playing everything you know just because you know it. For those few musicians in the audience, they can say, "Woo," you know what I mean? You have to get past that. So that's what I try to teach cats that are extremely talented already. It's like learn how to take some of that away and just play for the moment, not for the person. Not for the person you're trying to impress or something like that.
Anybody else? We got about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I have a question to kind of elaborate on what Richard was saying about how music is more based in genre these days and galvanized and polarized. In the context of composing, as far as lyrics and the music, do you organically write it and then whatever audience gravitates towards that, that's what comes, or do you focus on a specific audience and then write a song catering to them? Because y'all copying Grammys and stuff now, so.
A lot of times, even when we play shows, I think about the people in the audience. You know what I mean? Because jazz can be very self-righteous thing. It's I'm playing what I feel, and you can't watch me feel what I feel. So this is what it is. They don't care who's in the audience or care what, but I people watch. Even when I'm playing, I can tell when, okay, these people are getting on their iPhone right now, so this song isn't working for this person. Or you know what, I played too long. Let me, now people are getting bored. This audience isn't necessarily for this, boom, boom, boom. Because we play R&B, because we play all these different things, it's very important to assess those things, because you want those people to come back. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we look at the audience and be like, okay, you know what, this audience looks like they would cater more to this song, this song, this song, this song. Even when we do our set list, you know what I mean? And then we might go to a college, and it's like, oh, you know what, these college kids will like this, they will understand this, you know what I mean? Right. If we go into an audience and everybody, it looks like most of the audience is over 40, we're not gonna overdose on Dilla. Because obviously it just doesn't work, because people over 40 mostly don't know who Dilla is, so you get a lot of this. You know what I mean? And vice versa. We can say, oh, a lot of people over 40, we can play a Stevie joint, and then you get, woo! We'll play a Michael Jackson joint, ooh! You get that participation. So we do the same thing when we write songs, or write our plethora of songs or different songs or whatever, but when it's time to make a record, it's like, okay, who am I catering this record for? Especially now that we did win that R&B Grammy, now all eyes are on us in the R&B world to either rise to the occasion and keep going, or that was cool, but it's never happening again and we flipped away, you know what I mean? So when we did this last record, we paid more attention to, radio songs and these kind of things that work without losing who we are as musicians. There's something for everybody on the record. I think that's what makes the record work in the first place, because it literally works for everybody. There's something for everybody who likes whatever. You know what I mean? So we pay attention to all of those things. You know, I always talk about having a plan, being strategic and having a plan, because most musicians don't plan anything. They just get called for the gig, do the gig, they write their own song, do the gig, blah, 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 but they're not like, okay, you know what? I want to reach this audience, so what do I need to do to get here? Whatever your objective is, think about your objective and say, okay, what can help me get here? And just pay attention to things. Little bitty details, I swear, little bitty details. When we made Black Radio, we're all musicians, we love to take solos. At the same time, all of us love to not solo. I will play a groove for 3 hours and be so content with that. Other people be mad, you know what I mean, because they want to hear me play a solo. We literally can just stay somewhere for a very long time without taking solos. So on Black Radio, I made the decision, I was like, you know what, let's not overdose on solos on this album, because I want this album to be heard and loved by people who love R&B music, you know what I mean? Not really trying to appease the jazz audience per se. I did many records doing that already. So I want to grab these people over here who don't really know who we are, and I really want to get that away. So I made the decision to, hey, I think I took maybe two solos on Black Radio. You know, Casey took one. That was the album, you know what I mean? But you're not missing the jazz backbone of it and the jazz feeling of it. But at the same time, it's accessible for people who love R&B. It's accessible. Sometimes you do things that other people don't understand. You have the right intention, but it just doesn't work. You know, I always make an analogy. It's like trying to get your grandmother to listen to Lil Wayne. You know, after that, she's not gonna yeah, baby, I like, probably not. You know, because it's a generational gap. You know, so to bring these generations together, you have to pay attention to some things and be like, you know what, they may not get that right away, so let's not do that on every song. Let's make decisions and make smart decisions. And it's not selling out. It's not doing any of those things. You know, it's selling out venues. You know, that's what I tell people. Hey, you think I'm selling out? Right, you can't buy a ticket. So I sold out. Thanks. I don't think we've never, ever had a rehearsal on flipping a song.
No, never.
Literally, we just we listen to each other. And our whole thing is, when we get on stage, there's no one way to start a song. You know what I mean? The only thing that's for certain is sometimes I'll do an intro to something, you know what I mean? And then I'll come in with whatever. But the way they come in, what grooves they play, how we get into the song, how we leave the song, how we get out of the song, is all up in the air. It literally is. So we end up making up arrangements on the spot. Most of the stuff you hear which is why we call it experiment too, because a lot of stuff you hear, you think it's an arrangement, it's not. We've never played it like that before. But Mark decided to play that beat, and and it's like, woo! And he'll keep going, and Derek will come in with something, it's like, oh! And then Casey will sing something random over it. We're like, whoa! Why are you singing that song? That's crazy! And people be like, oh man, I love that arrangement. I'm like, yeah, we just made that up. Listening, yeah, talk to you.
Well, do you mind making something up for us right now?
Sure.
Let's stir the pot.
I started out, I played Teen Spirit over.
Yeah, I heard that stuff first.
Yeah, yeah. But other than that, yeah, we've never played that groove or any of that before, anything.
And how much practice time do you guys put in a day in your instrument?
Separately?
Yeah. How much practice time then do you recommend for these students?
But see, y'all are young, so it wasn't even, I didn't even look at this practicing. I just love to play and learn so much that I would literally, in junior high, in high school, you know, I literally could sit down at the piano for 8 hours, and I realized I was there literally almost 8 hours. Like, I've been at the piano, and my mom went to work and came back home, and I was still there. Like, because I just wanted to learn it so much, you know what I mean? So, you know, I don't get a chance to practice very much now. I probably haven't really practiced in about 5 years. I have a 5 and 4-year-old, so once I have a child, you don't practice. So, but I just practice a lot in high school, a lot in college, all the time. I wouldn't say the amount of hours matter. A lot of people love to talk about that. I practice for 10 hours. But you can practice. And a lot of times it's not, you didn't practice for 10 hours. You played your instrument for 10 hours. And that's not practicing. You know, I could talk for 20 hours. And if I didn't learn a new vocabulary word, I just talked for 20 hours. You know what I mean? That didn't help my vocabulary. You know, you could focus on something for 20 minutes and come away knowing more than a person that practiced for 10 hours. So it's about learning how to practice, you know, figuring out what you really can't do and coming to grips with yourself that you cannot do it. And then learning how to do it. You know what I mean? And it's very simple to not to skip over things because you're okay at it. And you can get comfortable with that until you get into the wrong situation where you're where all your flaws come out, Jack. You know.
That's the one thing about jazz.
Yeah.
That is the one thing.
Right. Exactly.
It will expose
It will expose you. Jazz will expose you. You play R&B gig all day, and you don't have to know much. You don't know much harmony. You know, not much. You know some chords. Jazz exposes you because you have to know inside and out harmony and all these different changes that R&B has never seen. You know what I mean? It's like, so you really have to study and know your stuff. So it's about just, for me, when it comes to practicing, you know, just focus on something and learn that, even if it takes you a week or whatever. There's so much to go, there's so much to do when it comes to practicing. I know people that try to cover every base every time they practice, you know, but you're not really mastering anything then. You're just becoming mediocre at a bunch of things, you know what I mean, versus mastering certain things or doing them really, really well. So just take the time out to tackle that bridge on Cherokee, you know what I'm saying? If it takes you a month or 2 months, you got it, now you know it. You're gonna see those changes again. You know what I mean? Now you know it. You know what I mean? But don't just say, oh, I can play it okay, and never really do it. You know, so I would just say, yeah, choose a few things and just zone in on those things and really, really, really practice them. You know what I mean? And then you'll see. I used to do this. It's kind of corny, but this is what I used to do before before there were cell phone stuff. I would go to jam sessions, and when I finished playing, that's when you know what, I can't do this very well. There's something I can't do. Ooh, that 2-5, I'm really not good at. I would write it down right after I get off the keys. Because a lot of times when you sit down and practice, you're like, okay, gotta practice. What do I practice? You know, even if there's a million things you need to know, but sometimes you just don't know what to practice. You know what I mean? So sometimes it helps to have a little notebook of things that you don't do good or things you want to learn. So you can go through and be like, you know what, let me tackle that, cross it off the list. And nothing's hard, it's just unfamiliar. You know what I mean? A lot of things you couldn't do them because you didn't know it. It was unfamiliar. But once you familiarize yourself with it, and you keep familiarizing yourself with it, it'll become easier and easier. And then it's not hard anymore. You know what I mean? So that's all it really takes is just discipline to like focus on something and not feel like you have to conquer music every time you sit down, because you're never going to. Herbie Hancock still practices. Chick Corea still practices. There's still stuff they don't know. So you're never going to conquer music, you know what I mean? But it's just, in general, music, it's too much to conquer. You know, so it's just about learning some things and just really taking the time to learn those things. So learning how to practice is one thing. 10 hours is too long to practice. It is. You can play. That's what I used to do. Like I said, I used to sit down and play for a very long time. But in that 8 hours I would sit down, or whatever, 3 hours I would sit down, I probably did 10 minutes worth of practicing. You know what I mean? Until I learned, oh, you know what, let me focus in on something. Boom, boom, boom. You can take, because there's something you don't know, if you just take 20 minutes out and just do it slow and practice it and whatever it is, take 20 minutes a day out and just do that, you know, you'll know. Derek does it all the time. We'll be sitting there talking at the airport gate. He'll have his bass out. He's like, yeah, she was pretty, right? You know, whatever, you know. You're just talking with your boys, whatever, talking about anything. Yeah, you saw the Pistons game last night? Whatever. You know, I don't know why I said Pistons. But you know, but he'll be doing like bass fingerings, you know, while he's talking to me. And I'll peep him doing it, but he's not paying attention while he's doing it, he's just doing it, you know what I mean? But just little stuff like that. He didn't take the time out and say, okay, when I get to the gate, I'm going to practice. You know what I mean? I'm going to do this. You know, he's just, he did it. You know, unfortunately, piano players can't do that at the gate. You know what I mean? You kind of have to be like, all right, I'm going to practice. But it's not a way of it. So, you know, that's what I think. Yeah. Did our curator walk out? Rick just left. Any more questions?
I'd love to hear some more.
Questions? Well, that's the thing, because you can see us all on YouTube. There's many things on YouTube with playing stuff, and you don't get a chance all the time to do this. I like to spend more time talking versus playing. Come to shows, look at YouTube, all that stuff. But this is more personal, and you don't get it all the time. So.
But y'all are definitely at a great age to just listen and just spend time playing. Like, unbelievable time for that. Like, you know, I was just telling them I saw an interview of one of my favorite musicians as far as the mechanics of how he plays, Russell Malone. You know, and he was talking about, you know, so much stuff was just cured by me sitting down, really just spending a little bit of time on just this one thing. You know what I mean? As when I was a youngster, and he was like, that went a long way. I mean, y'all at a great age to do that. You know, just play, like spend time. Right now, just playing. At some point, you're gonna have to put in time at the instrument. You know what I mean? Sometimes, don't take for granted. I mean, Robert's saying that, and trust me, I've seen him. You know, he spent time at the instrument. Sometimes people walk away taking this to mean going drastic in the wrong direction. No, you still have to spend some time doing something, even if you don't know what to do, just sitting there. You heard him say he spent at a time sitting at the piano when he didn't know what to play, he at least was playing. You know what I mean? Like, now y'all have the luxury of time without having all these influences of other things y'all have to do eventually to just survive. You know what I mean? So, like, practice and share it right now. You know what I mean? And then eventually people will come your way if you're asking the right questions, where somebody will tell you, you know, okay, now that you're spending time at it, why don't you focus down 20 minutes to this or that? But at some point, you're gonna have to spend some time just doing something. You know what I mean? A lot of times, you'd be shocked how lazy musicians are. A lot of musicians are like very, very lazy. You know what I mean? And it's kind of cool, especially, we all have a bag of tricks that if we just spend some time working on that, on our instrument, we will get a lot of attention and people will love us and say we're great at it. You know, we can learn little flashy things here and there and pick that up at a young age, and there'll be so many deficiencies we're actually ignoring by just learning this one thing, but because everybody's like, oh, that sounds great, we'll just do that. No, man, just spend a lot of time listening to stuff, and don't be afraid even to practice what you listen to. That's one thing. Don't just practice what's familiar. Even if you don't know what to practice, just spend time just practicing even what you hear. You know, chances are when you're young, you're not gonna listen to the same thing every day. Like, just learn that, even if it's a hip hop song. Like, my favorite, when I first got into school, I loved Nancy Wilson and vocalist phrasing, Sarah Vaughan and those type of people, they're phrasing. And I'll never forget when I first met Marcus Miller, he said, don't let that go. Like, you use that phrasing in what you do. You know what I mean? So to this day, you know, I ended up shedding a lot of vocalists, you know what I mean? So a lot of times when I play, it may not necessarily sound like things that are based around the mechanics of the bass, but it comes across because really I spend time emulating vocalists and people that, you know, sing and hit me a certain type of way, but it just was time spent just playing. So just really do that, though. You know, do something. Don't just chill, because there's somebody doing it.
I have a question.
In like making a record and stuff, where would you start?
That's a good question. Started to make a record? You gonna make a record?
Yes, I guess so.
Like, yeah, I'm ready. You have a band, or?
I play in band.
Mm-hmm. So you mean as far as making your own record?
Yeah, I guess so.
First, maybe get a band and get get a band and maybe practice some songs. You know what I'm saying? If it's original songs, or if it's some songs that have already been recorded, some standard songs or songs on the radio, whatever it is, and you just get that together, get the music together first. Act like you're not even going to record. You just get music together first. You know what I mean? And if you're talking about with a live band situation, I would say try to get some gigs places, or just practice. You know, practice playing together. And once you get that together, that part together, then you start asking questions about the recording process. Because now you're talking about, oh, now I got to get a studio. How much is the studio going to cost? You know, and all those kind of technical things. And okay, when I get this record, how am I going to print it up? I need 1,000 copies. You know, or you know, whatever it is you're trying to do, if you're trying to sell it or something. But other than that, you know, just getting your band together and getting the repertoire together, like what songs you're going to do and stuff like that, and just practicing with the band to try to get the sound that you like. And then when it gets to the point where you can listen to it and be like, I like that, you know what I'm saying? Then you can go and talk about maybe finding a studio that you can record at, you know? It doesn't have to be an expensive studio, it could be really small, cheap, in somebody's living room. I've done many things with that kind of thing, you know? Just so you can hear, you know, the progression of your band, check it out, stuff like that. When I first moved to New York for college, the church I played for in Houston, that pastor knew a pastor in Harlem. So I got to New York on like a Tuesday, and I was at choir rehearsal on Thursday. You know, he hooked me up with a job as soon as I got there. So luckily I was playing at a church every week. That helped support me. And then, you know, once you're in college and you meet a bunch of musicians, people start getting little gigs here at cafes and restaurants, stuff like that. Play for a few hours and make some money. That's kind of how I did it. And then, you know,
You stayed immersed.
Huh?
You stayed completely aligned and immersed in the craft and like related jobs that.
Yeah. Luckily, I was able to do that. Like I said, everybody can't do that. But again, that's the beauty of being in New York too, because then, you know, there's so many musicians, and New York has so many of those kind of places where they're like little coffee shops that have they have a quartet play from, you know, 8 to 10, or any of those little things. There's so many in New York, more than any place else probably, you know what I mean? So there's a lot more possibility for that kind of thing. And then you're with a lot of musician friends, so somebody, hey, I need you to play this day that day, whatever, stuff like that, you know? And then again, being in New York, you know, I was able to, you know, play with Christian McBride and Roy Hargrove and all these people while I was still in college. So going on the road with them for a while also brings in some money as well. But, you know, that's the beauty, again, of living in New York, because if you live like in Kansas, that's probably not going to happen. But, you know, so that was what I did for the most part.
I mean, yeah, for me, it was very similar. I was just out playing in church Sunday, and you know, I was in, believe it or not, a Latin band for 2 years, playing upright in a Latin band hard. Like I had gigs literally every week with like this really well-known Latin band in the area. That's Simon's brother.
Really? What's he playing?
So that kind of thing, because really, and I also worked for my school. I went to Temple, and I, you know, was there, and I was in, you know, Big Brother programs and.
You did maintenance at the school?
I did.
Wait, really?
Yeah. But and one of the main reasons I did that was because you know, I also needed some money to help me get to New York.
Yeah, sure.
I was doing the train at a certain point it became every weekend, and I just needed money to be able to do that and then get back in time for church on Sunday. You know what I mean? So the main reason I stopped working at the school and just doing little gigs that actually paid less, but it was because my teacher said just do whatever you can and try to spend time doing something in the music, even if it's not exactly what you want to do. Just spend time doing it. You know, if you make money, you'll find a way to survive, and that's what worked out for me. Really, where there's a will, there's a way. You know, I say that for everybody. You know, people always talking about opportunities that aren't there, and you randomly always run into people that you hear talking about they're looking for something more. I wish there were more people that. So what's happening? There's probably not enough hungry people out there really trying to put themselves in situations to try to do it.
What's the best venue you guys have performed in so far?
Man, we talk about that all the. We still haven't.
The best venue?
The best venue. They're all the same?
Center stage?
No, they're not all the same.
I know. So it has to be one that just.
I know, we're trying to sort it out. We played like 1,000. It's not that easy. Huh?
I said you all were just in Istanbul a couple of days ago, right?
That was a horrible venue.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It was a church, big church. That wasn't us, actually. That was just me with like a thing to put together. But yeah, that was pretty bad.
Could you modify this a little bit? Like, could you say like what's the absolute best and the absolute worst gig that you ever played? Like, how about like that? As opposed to the venue,
That's hard too. The best gig?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we went from 1,000 gigs. We went from 1,000 venues to 100,000 gigs. That's even harder now to separate those? I don't know.
We normally go off the where was the dopest crowd or where the vibe was. It could be some place where it didn't look the best, but like maybe the sound was just
Right.
good in there, you know. Man, that's tough.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Do you have a preference for concert or nightclub?
I prefer nightclub.
Nightclub,
With this band,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Because the music we do has more of a heartbeat of hip hop, and it's more interactive, audience-wise. You know, if you're in a big theater, sometimes people tend to, you have no choice. You kind of have to act like you're in a theater. You sit in the seat. And, you know,
You see the people moving around last night?
it's probably dark. Yeah, see the people last night. That was dope. But that had a club vibe.
Yeah.
That had a big club vibe. It wasn't a theater vibe. You know what I mean?
It must have been
And the people didn't treat it as such at all. You know, I love it. I felt like I had my whole family in the audience. You know, but when you're in the club and everybody's close to you and standing up, and it's a certain energy you get back versus being in the theater. A lot of times in theaters, when they're big enough, you don't even see the audience because it's black and the stage is bright.
Right.
So, you know, so we're playing, we're looking at the audience. It's like, do that, but close your eyes. You know what I mean? That's what it look like. You can't see them, so you don't know if they like it or not. You know.
So you like the involvement,
I
you
love
like the
it, yeah.
involvement of the people.
Yeah, especially clubs. We play some clubs. You know, a lot of times in Europe we play those kind of clubs too, and it's like they'll be right. People be right here. You know, they'll be literally putting drinks on my piano. I'm like, hey. But that's literally how close it is. But they want to be there. It's an energy you get back, so it's great. I love those. You know, theaters pay you more money. That's a good thing. Because you know you're paying in front of 2,000 people versus a club that only fits 500 people or something. You know what I mean? But the feelings is what matters. Whatever music you're trying to portray, you have to have people that actually really play that music. Other than that, you're having people play at the music, and it's not authentically that music. You know what I mean? So in Roy's case, RH Factor, he had a lot of people in the band, 2 drummers, sometimes 2 bassists, 2 guitar players, you know, a lot of, and you know, you have a lot of jazz cats in there that don't necessarily play hip hop. They listen to it, but don't necessarily play it that well to give you what, you know, what the artist is trying to portray. You know what I mean? So I think the key to us and what hasn't really been done before is that element of, you know, we're of the hip hop generation. We've all shared the stage with the masters of the craft, producers and the artists. You know, we've lived that life of being on the road with hip hop people, being in the studio with hip hop cats, really, really playing the music and learning how to play it authentically. At the same time, done the exact same thing with jazz, played with the jazz masters, and play, you know, so everything we're doing is really authentic to what we know and what is our story of our generation, our lifetime. You know what I mean? And so when we play jazz, it's jazz. When we actually play hip hop, it's hip hop. Most people have a weak link. A weak link, you can tell which one they really are comfortable with because they don't really mess with the other thing, you know what I mean? And we don't have that problem with this band. Everybody's literally authentic in every aspect of it. So we don't need a DJ to be the hip hop part. You know what I mean? That's what people have done in the past. They'll say, hey, I mixed hip hop and jazz before. But it's like, no, you really didn't, because it was a DJ for the hip hop part. Or it was a DJ, or it would be a hip hop band, but they have a DJ playing John Coltrane cuts. You know, or Charlie Parker cuts. So now they mix hip hop and jazz, you know. But to have one band to play both authentically, you know what I mean? And any group on both sides, any hip hop group would be like, oh, experiment. They play hip hop and they're the best. Or the Roots saying the same thing, you know, but then having all the jazz groups say, yo, those guys, you know, that's the difference of what's never happened before. And I think it's because we're so in touch with the music we're playing. You know, we don't take it for, you know, when it comes to hip hop, that's something you gotta really know how to play. It's easy to fake it. It's easier to fake hip hop than it is to fake jazz. You know what I'm saying? Either you can play rhythm changes or you can't. You're gonna know the first 2 measures whether you can or not. You know what I'm saying? With hip hop, it's more of a feel thing. You know, after a few minutes, you be like, You know, not even a few minutes depending on the instrument. Like the first measure, you're like, ooh, you don't play hip hop. You know what I mean? You have to practice it. You have to study it. Like any other music, a lot of people downgrade hip hop and really don't give it the amount of shedding that it needs to have for you to play it properly. And to know that you're even playing it wrong is a whole different, is a technical, you can talk about that some more too.
Yeah, because when you talk about that music, I mean, literally, musically, it didn't start off necessarily with the how, like the concept of how it's played today. It wasn't necessarily played like that musically. Like literally, you'll have an MC, and you know, for the most part, an MC didn't have bands. You know, they didn't like MCs like, okay, I'm about to MC. Let me put a band together. You know what I mean? They had some, you know, they had to come up with a beat, something to rhyme on top of. So they would take sections of music of a track that was already recorded and loop it and then rhyme on top of that. So when you do that, what's happening musically is not something that was organically happening with musicians at that time. So literally, it's a different kind of feel, it's a different kind of sound when you take a section of a song and then loop it. That's a totally different thing. So when you get into that whole way of applying that concept musically, it's pretty much understanding what about that makes a MC like it. One, you have this loop aspect of it, where it creates a platform where he can do rhyme or rap on top of something. It's not about the music in the sense of look at the band or listen to. It's about this platform that's there so the MC can do what he does. You know, so it's just the study of that. So when you hear somebody just, you know, they say I'm gonna play some hip hop and they play and they start doing certain feels, it's like already that concept of how he's thinking is not necessarily how it was founded, you know, how that music, the music was created. So he has to, you can tell he doesn't understand what that genre of music is about. So, you know, that's pretty much the basis of if a musician having to study the music. They really don't have a lot of references musically. The best reference I had when I started to play music as a musician was the Roots, because there were no other bands playing hip hop, because that's not how it started. So the Roots, that's you know, you check out Questlove, that's what he does. You know, he studied how to take a break beat or a loop and play it to make it feel like a hip hop groove, you know, which is, you're dealing with sonics, because you take that loop or this album that was recorded, mastered, you know, mixed a certain way, that created that sound. He took that, chopped it up, and created something. So now you're dealing with, there's a certain sound that you know, that's attached with the notes. You know what I mean? Which has to do with tuning and all kind of stuff. So it's a lot to it. So
tuning. Let's just talk about that real quick. Basically, basic tuning. Like, please don't hit the stage without tuning. That's annoying. So many people do that. That's like 101, tune, because it's not going to sound good when you play with other people. It's going to clash. It does not sound good, you know what I mean? That's the first thing I look for when people come on, like, hey man, we'll play that, just take the thing out the bat, boom, you know, and they never tune, you know what I mean? Or even pay attention to the tuning while they're playing, like, oh, you know what, you know, whatever you want to do with the saxophone. Derek does it all the time. I can't tune. My stuff is tuned already. You know what I mean? So y'all tune to me. Mark's all about tuning. Each drum is tuned a certain way. You know what I mean? That's what gives you the feeling of a lot of stuff we're playing. Is the way you tune, the way sonically you make your instrument sound. Derek does that all the time. He's so cognizant of that. In the middle of him playing a bass line, you know, it'd be you know what I mean? That's like let alone what you're playing. If it does not sound good, I don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear anything that, you know what I mean? Like, if a girl approaches you who's really pretty, but she sounds like, hey, what's up? I don't know what the sound, what you doing later on?
Do we have any more questions? We have to wrap this up. Okay.
She didn't ask one, did she? Go ahead.
Can I get the drummer to take a stab at talking in musical terms to an old person about what beats is?
Beats is pretty much.
If you can do it in musical terms, I can understand.
Okay, a beat pretty much would be a set of notes that's put into a pattern and repeated.
You got it?
I had a student that came to me, and all he brought with him was beats.
Oh, probably beats like
I mean, he was making them with his,
because it could be
sticks.
Fruity Loops.
And so I had him record it so somebody could translate it for me.
Oh, okay, because it could be a beat.
Because I wanted to know what the foundation was. I want to know what rudiment, where it came from.
It pretty much came from acoustic instruments, because if you go back to, Africa where rhythm, all that stuff came, about, they just had, whatever drums that they made out of wood, that's what they had to make do these rhythms. So a rhythm is all it is a set of notes put into some kind of pattern. So if I want to play a rhythm, and this is a beat, a rhythm is, I can come up with a rhythm. I got an instrument to play on, and then I'll create a rhythm.
Okay, that part.
That's a beat. So now, over time, technology evolved. So now I can take this sound and make it synthetic or copy it and put it through electronics or different things like that. So now I can take a machine, have this same sound, put it on part of the machine and do this, and it'll sound like this. So say this is my machine, I'll do this and record it. So I can record it. I recorded it. Now I stop the recording, like with the tape record. I can stop the recording and press play, and it'll go. So then I loop it, which means I'll have it repeat over and over again. So I just did that, recorded it. Now press loop, and it'll do this. And that's my beat. So nowadays, I don't necessarily have to have an acoustic instrument. I can make a beat with a computer or with some type of electronic tool.
Yeah. I think he just made these up. He's about 13.
Yeah, anybody can do it. As long as he has some kind of computer or machine or something that does that, he can do it.
Okay, my musical mind is confused. But okay, I got it.
Oh, okay, yeah,
but anybody can do it. There's no, just beats.
Yeah, you can make a beat.
Now, whether they're good or bad anybody can do it. Like anybody can cook, but.
Yeah, because my first urge was to take it, listen to it, and write it out.
Right, you can do that. You definitely do that. You can write it out.
And then show him how to play it.
Exactly.
Because he had no formal training.
I got you.
So that I wouldn't confuse him with trying to teach him the musical value of it.
Now, see,
I got to understand where in the world did it come from.
But see, the difference is this though. You have guys like there is confusion with the electronical world and the acoustic world. Like if I was a person who made beats and I went to a musical teacher and said I want to learn music,
yeah.
It comes down to, do I want to learn how to get better at my beat making on machines and computers, or do I want to learn how to play the actual drums?
We thank you guys as always. Great stuff. And we hope this inspires you today. This is what this is all about, to help you go to the next level and do what you need to do so you can be sitting in these chairs one day and inspiring some other young people. So that's what it's all about. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. You want to hang out for a bit, you're welcome, but appreciate you guys, man.
Yeah.